Good morning and welcome everybody to the Metro Outer Development Assessment Panel for Thursday the 30th of October. I'll declare the meeting open at 9:31, and in doing so I'd like to acknowledge that we are hosting this meeting on the traditional land of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and we acknowledge the Aboriginal people as the traditional custodians of Western Australia and pay respect to elders past and present and the ongoing connection between people, land, waters and community. The meeting will be run in accordance with the DAP Standing Orders 2025 under the Planning and Development Assessment Panels Regulations 2011. The meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the DAP website in accordance with Regulation 42A of the Planning and Development Assessment Panels Regulations 2011. Members are reminded to announce their name and title prior to speaking, and panel members may refer to technical devices throughout the meeting to assist them in considering the information before them. I will now introduce the panel members. As I say, my name is Karen Hyde. I'm the presiding member. To my left, Dale Page, Deputy Presiding Member. Further to my left, Eugene Coltas, Specialist Member. And on screen, we have Mayor Margaret Thomas from the City of Kalamunda and Deputy Mayor Kathy Ritchie from the City of Kalamunda. We have no apologies at item 2. Item 3, noting of minutes of previous meetings are available on the DAP website. We now move to part B of our agenda for the City of Kalamunda. And first, I would like to see if there are full declarations of due consideration from panel members. Have they duly considered all of the documentation contained within part B of the agenda and part B related information? Could I see a show of hands, please? Yes, everyone has confirmed they've given due consideration. I'll then invite members to declare any additional declarations of interest. First of all, could I ask Mayor Thomas and Deputy Mayor Ritchie, was this item considered at council?
No.
Thank you. Are there any other declarations of interest? No, no declarations of interest. We will move ahead then. Today, we are considering Form 1 DAP application for Lot 29, number 14, and Lot 28, number 16, Canning Road, and Lot 3, number 5, Heath Road, Kalamunda, for proposed fast food outlet and motor vehicle wash. We have a number of presentations today, as you will gather, and in accordance with the DAP Standing Orders 4.8.2, presentations are limited to 3 minutes. However, I have granted Mark Ray, on behalf of the applicant, a further couple of minutes, just in order for him to respond to some of the points that the community may raise in their deputations within their allocated time. So please, in your presentations, focus on your key matters. We have received all your documentation. We have read it. We've read that. Even the very small print, we've zoomed in and we've read all of that as well. And last time we ran the meeting, it was run in a very amicable and polite and respectful way. I anticipate that that will still be the case for this meeting. So thank you for your consideration of other presenters. And as you know, panel members may ask questions after the presentations. Now we have a slight change of the order of presentations. I'm going to invite first Brian Simpson, who is online because he has other commitments through the education service to deal with. Brian is against the application, and Brian, I've allowed you 3 minutes. So when you're ready.
Okay, thank you very much. My issues with the proposed McDonald's and car wash are to do with the location. My wife and I live at Canning Court, 18 Canning Road, which is right next door to the planned development. There are 6 units there, all occupied by seniors ages from 70s to the 90s. So my concerns go as follows. To put context to it, the proposed McDonald's is to be built just over the fence from our block of units. The old house next door is to be demolished, and a double-lane driveway will go past our fence, 2 lanes going into one just over the fence. Not ideal, I don't think. As far as I can see, this will be the only fast food outlet in the city of Kalamunda and city of Swan that's adjacent to people's homes. I wonder how many people would like their elderly parents, grandparents being put in this position. I wonder if the developers would like this. Think about lights, the smell, the traffic, the visuals and the noise just next door. This totally changes the fabric of where we live. There are plenty of other sites that are not next to houses. Many of our group feel that they can't sit outside during the day for some fresh air. The vehicle fumes, cooking smells, the noise from the drive-through then will be cooped up in our units. Add to that, we're extremely concerned about security. We moved into the area and the units because of the village nature of Kalamunda, the amenity, which we feel is going to be lost with this development. I'm not sure whether these personal concerns are taken into account, but I think they should be. I think as senior citizens, we've earned the right to be heard and not to be considered invisible. However, other matters to be taken into account, the traffic. The traffic's already heavy on Canning Road. The intersection at Heath Road is becoming very, very busy. With all due respect to whatever proposals have been made, it's not going to get any better. The thought of possible traffic light at the intersection leaves us cold as well. Amenity. Many of us moved to Kalamunda for the amenity. The village nature is wonderful. As a member of Kalamunda Rotary Club, I regularly talk to visitors to the area who come to the monthly markets, and they comment on that very thing, the village atmosphere and the amenity, which I don't believe having the thing that people see as they come around the bend is going to help at all. Proximity to schools. As a retired long-term teacher and principal, have concerns about the McDonald's being just 400 metres from the local primary school and so close to high school kids. Back to us at Canning Court, this development is going to have a detrimental effect on our lifestyle and I believe our physical and mental health and well-being, as we have to deal with the above issues while we see our assets lose value. This makes the thought of moving difficult if we want something on a par with what we have. We do not want or need a McDonald's next door. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Brian. Could I see if any panel members had any questions of the presenter? No, we don't at this point, Brian. Thank you very much for that presentation. So if you need to leave at any point, then please feel free. Otherwise, please stay online.
I will stay as long as I can, yes.
Thank you. The next presenter is Chris Swiderski. Now, Chris has asked for 2 presentations, one on behalf of himself and one on behalf of Sharon Swiderski. So you've been allocated 3 minutes for each. Yes. And I think you have a PowerPoint as well.
Yeah, I do. Yep. I'll prompt Ashley as I'm going through.
All right, very good. Ready?
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, presiding member. I'm Chris Swiderski. I'm talking on behalf of myself and also my mother, who lives next door. My side hustle is as a town planner and a director of a transport planning consultancy, and I've been doing this for 30 years. Oh, sorry, can I just pause? Actually, sorry, the presentation material.
How far down?
It would have been a 6, or sorry, it would have been a 9 or a 10 slide email.
Great. Sorry, I shared the wrong one. Apologies.
If you can speak about the page and then The focus of the presentation and indeed our submissions to revise application are three key areas that are shown on the screen. These are the reinforcement of our original submission, focus on the 6 deferral reasons from the first hearing, and then examination of the information contained within the applicant's submission and the information provided by counsel. Next slide, please, Ashley. Can I say just right from the outset that I can't believe that over 154 days since we last sat in this room, that the best the applicant and the council officers have come up with to address your key deferral reasons and the multitude of issues that were painfully obvious with the first attempt is effectively relocation of a pram ramp. That's it. There have been absolutely no attempt or any series of justifiable means to address the concerns that both MODAP and the community have about the key impacts of the application. None. The same glaring issues are present. The same key concerns that were raised by MODAP still exist with this application, and the same poorly conceived assessment exists, but crucially for MODAP, the same elements are there from which you can reject the RAR, reject the resolution put forward by council officers, and reject the proposal altogether. The word impact is exceptionally prescient from our submission, as MODAP has to be assured that the transport impacts of the development can be addressed or mitigated. Yes, please, Ashley, next slide. In our first submission, I pointed out quite clearly that using a basic traffic distribution assessment, the numbers in the applicant's report do not reflect reality at all, and there has been no attempt to justify the traffic distribution numbers in their report other than we'll throw a third here, a third there, and another third there. Job done. Did they go on away and actually look at that and adjust their assessment or actually have a go at it? They did not, even though it was handed to them on a platter. The problem is that the distribution numbers for traffic are absolutely critical, and downplaying them means that the assessment is incorrect and the outcomes of the reporting and the proposal put forward to you, MODAP, is wrong. Even council's own independent review of the intersection assessment, sorry, next slide, please, Ashley, made this really crystal clear. The fundamentals of the intersection design as part of this application have not changed between the advice provided by Don Veal, again, another transport planner with 30 plus years experience, and now. Next slide, please, Ashley. Council officers have absolutely studiously ignored their own activity centre plan recommendations. They've ignored the advice of their own independent transport planner review of the applicants, and they've ignored the advice set out in my first detailed submission. It's taken just one application for council to back away from their own activity centre plan recommendations. And this underlines just how poor the assessment of that plan was and how that then percolates down individual site developments such as this. Next slide, please, Ashley. The recommendations in the transport report for the activity centre plan are absolutely clear. And this says the restriction of the right turn out to Canning Road is recommended. And the reason that was recommended was because of safety and performance issues, even without knowing the type of car-centric development that was going to be proposed for this site. In terms of timing, if any time would meet this criteria, it would be when a single development will pile on such a huge increase in traffic at this intersection for peak movements that the intersection absolutely fails, and it does. And I know because I've remodeled it with a whole range of different scenarios. But this application does not propose that. It proposes and is supported by council officers to go 100% about face on the activity centre plan assessment, throw out and ignore the recommendations and actually encourage more right-hand turning traffic and encourage more congested conditions and increase existing safety issues at a location that's supposed to be within a town centre that the activity centre plan specifically sets out an objective for. This is not how elderly planning works. The activity centre plan sets the assessment, it establishes the recommendations, and then those recommendations are actually enacted upon, not left.
Chris, you've had 3 minutes, so I know you're trying to perhaps blend things. I just wanted to draw that to your attention.
Thank you. So, yes, please, Ashley. Next slide. The objection on parking levels for the application and adjoining sites remain as is from the first submission. Discretion is absolutely not warranted for a car-centric development like this. It absolutely should not be applied for an application that is clearly not in keeping with the intended activity centre plan, and it absolutely remains the case that similar applications have been refused through DAP before, and indeed that's been reinforced through SAT. Council or the applicant provide absolutely no basis on which discretion can be applied as a condition of approval. There's no supporting information, there's no actual analysis, and there's a reliance of numbers that are up to 13 years old to supposedly justify this one request. I can assure MODAP that none of the 3 precinct structure plans that I'm working on at the moment relies on stuff that was actually done in 2012. You actually go and get the information as it is current. Next please, Ashley. Council also was remiss in setting out that even more parking would be removed on street with the proposed changes to the intersection, with 2 more bays on the northern side disappearing, as well as an Ackroyd bay that doesn't meet relevant standards, having the ramp area in front of it disappearing because they actually have to relocate one of the parking bays. So not only is that bay completely non-compliant, but also it takes out the opportunity for people to actually use it. So discretion is being tripled through the other development applications, and now they're actually making it even worse for the users of that bay. Next slide, please, Ashley. And finally, the DRP outcomes. I've never been involved. Oh, you're like, I don't know. I've never been involved in a development proposal that's failed to have a single positive response from DRP after multiple review sessions, or applicants seemingly failed to provide any form of meaningful positive response to what the DRP is saying. For us, and specifically my mother, who's right next door, the red lights around community and amenity are absolutely to the heart of this objection for them. This was made clear in our first submission, where no examples were evident where a fast food outlet operating 24 hours a day alongside a car wash was hoisted upon existing aged person residential units right next door, as Brian has already mentioned. It just does not happen in the context of this sort of town. The reason this is, of course, is because it represents an incredibly poor planning outcome, a missed development opportunity on this site, and it represents an abject failure of the activity centre plan to actually deliver on what the community expectations are.
Okay, so you're at 6 now.
Got it. Last sentence. The DRP get it, the community get it, and I would absolutely encourage MODAP to reject the RAR and deliver an alternative motion that rejects this application.
Thank you, Chris. If we could, let's stay where you are. If we could lose, thank you. Are there any questions of this presenter, please? No? Okay, thank you very much, Chris. We now have as a presenter Zoe Warwick. Now Zoe is presenting on behalf of herself and also on behalf of Alice Warwick. So Zoe, you have 3 + 3 as Chris. Right.
So thank you for your time. Dear presiding members, this is Alice's submission. My May submission remains the same. However, I must comment on a number of other matters, mostly raised by the applicant. 1, parking. The only parking being offered is for customers of McDonald's, and even those are not sufficient. Additional parking for IGA has not been considered. So where will the overflow go? Clearly, it would have to be on Brook Street and Boonaloo Road, and that wouldn't be the only inconvenience for those occupants. Because people who live farther down south of Heath Road, on Canning Road and beyond, would start using access to and from Kalamunda Road through Boonaloo Road. This would create a hazard where Boonaloo meets Heath Road, close to the primary school, and parents delivering or picking up children would be faced with what would become a dangerous junction. If parking occurs on both sides, residents of both Boonaloo Road and Brook Street would have to contend with single lane driving down the middle. So we could well end up with traffic hazards on Heath, Brooks and Boonaloo roads. Pedestrians. The applicant is offering to remove a metre from the pavement outside IGA to facilitate a 2-car exit from Heath Road. They have realised this would preclude walking safely from the south side of Heath Road to west. So the solution being offered is to remove the ramps without saying where they would go. Without them, people who use walking frames, scooters or seat walkers would be unable to cross Heath Road at all, remembering that all villas and units south of Heath Road are occupied by people over 55, but mostly by the elderly who use these appliances. Pedestrian access. The latest proposal to create a pedestrian access from Canning Road via the brick doorway structure would surely put the pedestrians at risk of being run over by cars inside the premises, approaching the ordering windows or the restaurant. Also, at busy times, people queuing on the pavement to enter the brick doorway would block the way of anyone walking down Canning Road. 4, noise. In the council's residential dwellings, it says that technical assessment confirms it will not adversely affect adjoining properties through noise. The applicant may indeed be able to control noise inside their premises. Could they have the same control outside the premises? And they certainly couldn't control the noise of constant traffic from 5:30 a.m. till 11 p.m, possibly earlier than 5:30 a.m, since that is open time, and deliveries would have to be considerably earlier than that. Goodbye to sleep for the occupants of the adjoining properties. Incidentally, it's futile to refer to the opening times of other businesses, none of which is built up to the fence of the dwellings of any kind, let alone those belonging to people over 70, nor is any one of them built on an already dangerous corner. Finally, I'm sure the applicant, with their enormous wealth, will have no interest in the huge loss in the value of properties adjacent to them.
Thank you. So you're going to talk on behalf of yourself now.
So, speaking on behalf of myself,
Thank you.
I'm a disability advocate and a weekly visitor to Kalamunda, to the markets and a lot of the other events that happen in Kalamunda, particularly at Sturt Park. Not right for being part of the Kalamunda town centre is my first issue. The proposal was designed for cars, not people, and it doesn't fit the vision of a walkable, community-focused town centre. The building is set back behind parking and drive-through lanes, making it harder for pedestrians, including people with a disability. And this is of all ages, not just people over 55. Those with mobility devices to access entrances safely and comfortably. Second, the traffic and intersection problems. Canning Road and Heath Road intersection is already busy and over capacity. With an additional 48 vehicles per hour, this will only bring now Arterial Road and adjoining street to a standstill. Emergency vehicles heading from Midland St John of God Hospital to alter their and lengthen their direct routes up Canning Road to the multiple premises of people over 70 on the southern side of the proposed facility, especially during weekends. Even with the upgrades, traffic studies show it will remain congested by 2030, making access more difficult for everyone, especially those with mobility challenges who need safe, predictable crossings and pathways that are direct. 3, the parking shortfall. The proposal does not provide enough parking for customers and staff, including accessible bays for people with a disability. It relies on public street parking, which is limited and may not always have accessible spaces close to the entrance, making it harder for people with disability to visit safely and conveniently. 4, the impact on local amenity. The development will bring more noise, late night activity and traffic close to home and the local church next door, affecting the comfort and safety of residents, including those with a disability who may be more sensitive to noise and disruption. It removes mature trees and does not provide enough new greenery or shade, reducing comfort for all users, especially those who need accessibility and shaded paths. 5, the design quality. The design does not reflect Kalamunda's unique character and does not prioritise safe, accessible pedestrian routes. I'm not saying no McDonald's for Kalamunda. I'm just saying that this location is absolutely wrong.
Thank you, Zoe. I'll just check if anybody has questions. Any questions of this presenter? No, thank you very much. Next, we have Michaela Simpson presenting against the application. Thank you.
Michaela
Simonson, sorry, and I think I made the same mistake last time. Sorry.
I'm here representing the opposed Kalamunda McDonald's and Car Wash Community Action Group.
Thank you.
Members of the panel, on behalf of the Kalamunda community, I would like to voice our continued opposition to the proposed development and the amended application before you. We do not have confidence that the applicant has done enough to comprehensively mitigate the heightened risks generated by the proposed development and urge you to reject the application for the following reasons. Firstly, there remains insufficient parking for all 3 car-centric businesses that will occupy the site. Continued reliance upon the application of reciprocal parking to address the proposed development's parking shortfalls is unreliable. The dependence on a reduced bay allocation rate is not robust when considered from a long-term perspective, and especially since the data cited to justify the rate is sourced from material produced in 2011. The 2011 SureMap traffic assessment fails to remain relevant over a decade later in 2025. Secondly, the proposed road upgrade is insufficient to mitigate traffic congestion and poses increased road safety risk by design. The road upgrade fails on 2 fronts. It contributes to increased parking pressure by removing a further 2 on-street bays, and creates further risk to pedestrian safety by truncating the existing footpath and creating an additional lane of traffic for pedestrians to navigate. The road upgrade is counterintuitive to pedestrian-friendly design. Expecting pedestrians, including elderly people with walking aids, to navigate further traffic at the intersection side to accommodate the development is not prudent when the City of Kalamunda champions pedestrian-friendly development in its planning policies. Thirdly, the character and design of the building continues to not conform to the City of Kalamunda's built form design guidelines, and the amended DRP demonstrates negligible change. Lastly, the development remains insensitive to the amenity of the Kalamunda Town Centre. Whilst the applicant may believe that the development is desirable based upon other commercial occupancy within the area, I would like to highlight that the City of Kalamunda has previously identified the existing Red Rooster store as a constraint to the town's amenity, not conducive to a desirable entry statement for the town. This development, if approved, will be a further constraint when viewed in relation to Kalamunda's village amenity and the City of Kalamunda's Our Home in the Forest place identity. Today's decision will have long-lasting effects on the future amenity of our town and the safety of our community. We ask that you consider your judgment with great caution, as the applicant will set a precedent for future development in our community and is at risk of irreversibly damaging the amenity of our home amongst the forest. Thank you.
Thank you, Michaela. I'll just check if anyone has any questions for you. Any questions for this presenter? No, not at this time. Thank you very much. The next presenter is Alan Malcolm, presenting against the application. Thank you. And do feel free if you need water to.
Oh, I do. Thank you.
Pour.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I will be speaking solely on the environmental noise assessment.
Okay.
This development will be the first of its kind in the Perth metro area, and as such, it will be setting a precedent, and therefore considerable caution, care, and diligence is required in assessing this application. Both the Environmental Protection Act 1986 and the Environmental Protection Noise Act of 1997 require the two fundamental principles are adhered to. One, the precautionary principle, and two, the protection of human health from significant harm. To be in alignment with these principles, a noise assessment is obliged to use the worst possible case in each scenario. The use of worst case scenarios is also supported by the fact that it is acknowledged by the proponent that the noise assessment is based on a computer simulation and as is such, only at best an educated guess. I believe that because of an error, some incorrect assumptions and an unwarranted exclusion, this noise survey is not representative or even an educated guess and requires close examination. I will address mainly nighttime operations, most relevant here. For nighttime operations, all residential properties are within only 2 decibels of the limit set by the regulations. The error. The night assigned noise levels on table 4 are, in my opinion, all incorrect. They should be 1 decibel lower because I believe the influencing factor has been incorrectly calculated from figure 2.1 on page 23. This automatically means that R3, 4 Heath Road, fails the assessment and Canning Road, R1, is already at the limit. Incorrect or unrepresentative scenarios. Vehicle car numbers used. In figure 4.1, scenario 1, nighttime noise ground floor level, only 7 cars are shown in the drive-through area, none at the car wash and 2 parked on the north side of the car wash. This grossly underestimates what could actually happen in reality. The precautionary principle and common sense dictate that a worst case scenario must be used. The traffic numbers produced by McDonald's state for PM operations there could be up to 140 vehicles an hour, which is 35 cars in a 15-minute period. If, for instance, we use 16 cars and a couple of cars at the car wash, coupled with the incorrect assigned level I've alluded to earlier, then all the residential properties will fail this assessment. Is this possible? That number of cars? Of course it is. Low AC speed fans at night. The night noise levels should be assessed with all AC fan speeds at high, not low. Could this occur? Yes, on a hot, busy night, there's every possibility they would have to operate the ACs at full speed because of the temperature and the busyness. The height of the modelled receivers. All the modelled receivers are at 1.5 metres above ground level. The receivers at residents on Canning Roads are effectively being shielded by the new proposed masonry wall, and the simulation may very well be giving very misleading results. I also note in their text on page 8 of the noise assessment, they stipulate that the modelled receiver height is 1.4 metres, not 1.5, which puts them even further below the height of the wall. The combined output of the three large, the noise from the roof-mounted ACs have a direct line of sight over this wall into the houses. The combined output of the three large ACs is approximately 86 decibels, unattenuated with a direct line of sight. This will produce a noise level of over 50 decibels at the closest residence, which is well in excess of the regulations. There are no details in the noise assessment about the attenuation provided by any shielding. That needs to be looked at.
So you're at 3 minutes.
One tiny little bit more and I'm done. Exemption under noise regulation 3. It is abundantly apparent, it is abundantly clear that the internal driveways and car parks are there solely for the purpose of accessing McDonald's and the car wash. An exemption under regulation 3 should not be permitted. In such noise-sensitive areas where many levels are already so close to the permissible limits, the precautionary principle must apply. This requires that the worst-case scenario is used, and that requires that this exemption is not denied, as you're fully entitled to under the Act. The Act states an access road that is only used for the purpose of the premises may not meet the definition of a road, and the noise regulation exemption may not apply.
Alan, can you reach a conclusion now?
Yes, I hope I've brought to your attention serious concerns about one of the fundamental aspects of any development application. And I do not believe that you can let this application proceed without further investigation and scrutiny of the environmental noise assessment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll just see if there are questions for you. Any questions for this presenter? Member Page has a question. Sorry, we do it the other way round, so we don't allow you to ask questions of the presenters. Sorry, Member Page.
Just a point of clarification, if I may. When you started your presentation today, you talked about the fact, well, you're of the view this is the first of its kind in Perth metro area. Is that what you said?
Yes, the reason.
Explain what you base that on.
Absolutely. The reasons for this is the first of its kind that is not located near or close to a major road. It is the first of its kind that is located to so close to so many highly noise sensitive residents. And thirdly, within the 100 and 450 meter radius of this development, it's the only one that has such a high proportion of residential properties and an incredibly low potential under 20%, I think, of both their only commercial residences in that area.
So could I just follow up? What research did you do of other premises? Because in the planning decisions I've made in other lives before, I've certainly approved some that are similar in their so I'm wondering what research did you do to come up with that?
We actually looked at several other McDonald's through 150 meter radius and look for major roads, commercial or industrial properties within that area, and looked at adjacent residential properties. And as far as I can see, there's none that are so adversely affected by the positioning.
Thank you.
Any further questions of this presenter? No, thank you.
Thank you.
Next presenter is David Modolo, presenting against the application.
Thank you, Chair. Just bear with me while I get some water, please.
Yes.
The focus of my presentation panel is on deferral condition 6 of the May meeting, as Chris briefly referred to earlier. That required the city's design review panel to take another look at this proposal following the applicant's changes. They did, and the DRP's feedback in July could not have been clearer. 7 out of 10 assessment categories remain red, meaning those aspects were not supported. The remaining 3 are yellow, meaning further attention is required. The proponent did not achieve a single green box. And while a plain reading of the responsible authority report appears an attempt to sort of downplay these findings, this panel was rightfully concerned with the dim view taken by the DRP at the May meeting. It should remain concerned both with the recent DRP findings and the summary dismissal of those findings by the RAR. In its few paragraphs, the RAR describes the design, and I quote, as a significant improvement and departure from the applicant's operational needs. With respect, that is not an accurate reflection of the design review panel's findings, nor is it an adequate response to it. The DRP's minutes make clear that a fundamental problem remains. This is a car-centric layout that fails to deliver an active street edge or a pedestrian-friendly environment, both core requirements of Local Planning Policy 30. The DRP said plainly that the development wraps 3 lanes of bitumen between the street and the building. Key aspects were found to undermine Kalamunda's character, not enhance it. In reality, the RAR has treated a poor design that frankly makes minor tweaks as one that now meets what they call the broad intent of the built form design guidelines. But the policy intent of LPP 30 is not broad, it is specific. And when the RAR says the proposal is leaning into the town centre context, well, that statement simply doesn't align with the evidence before this panel. The DRP called the proposal an outlier to its surroundings, incompatible with the scale, the rhythm, the pedestrian focus of Kalamunda's core. Condition 6 was meant to ensure that genuine design improvements were met before approval. The city's own expert panel shows they have not. Instead, the RAR glosses over these unresolved issues to justify a conclusion that cannot be supported by its own evidence. For that reason, I submit that the RAR gives insufficient regard to the expert advice of the design review panel and fails to demonstrate compliance with the built form design guidelines. This panel's own condition 6 remains unmet, and this proposal before you today, panel, should be judged accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. I'll just check if any panel members have questions of you. Any questions for this presenter?
Please.
Member Page?
A couple, if you don't mind. So I just wanted to check your understanding. The previous reason of deferral of this panel was to enable the panel or the chair to review the amended design and to provide final comments. So the deferral reason didn't say it needs to be all green boxes. It just needed, we were concerned that they hadn't had another look at it. And so that was the deferral reason. Is that your understanding?
It is, absolutely.
And then also you picked up on something the panel said about the fact that these are car-centric uses. But I just wanted to check your understanding, because you seem to have a knowledge, quite a deep knowledge of this, with the land use permissibility in the scheme or the structure plan of the use. So a fast food outlet is a permitted use and they're all car-centric uses. So I'm just, is it not curious then that the design review panel made a comment about a car-centric use which is permitted on the site?
Well, look, I think the car-centric use goes to some part of what the design review panel had to find, but ultimately there were a wide range of reasons beyond that as to why it didn't comply with what the community expected and resolved as part of what. So certainly whilst it is a permitted use, there are plenty of comments I think that we can derive and holistically from the design review panel's report that suggests that this particular development isn't consistent with what the community expects.
Just one last one, please, in relation to the terms of reference or the role of the design review panel, and you are no doubt across that, but I just wanted to check your understanding about the role of design review panels in planning decision making. And it's probably more for everybody else. Checking your understanding that they are not a statutory decision maker, they're one of many inputs into the planning decision making process.
Certainly, and look, within the 3 minutes I chose to focus on this particular proposal, I think ultimately the views of the design review panel, although not binding, are certainly something that the panel has regard to and rightfully identified in the May meeting. So the fact that we haven't moved very far from that May meeting is, I think, the point we're trying to make. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No further questions of that presenter? No, thank you. Next, we have Hannah Lill, who I hope we find online.
Good morning.
Good morning, Hannah. Over to you for your presentation when you're ready.
Hello, so I'm Hannah Lill, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this morning. In a recent SAT decision, it was reiterated that those who are charged with administering planning laws needed to be much more cognizant of the community value that attaches to landscape and trees. With this in mind, and in particular in the context of Kalamunda, with its rich historic and natural area values, it follows that this development's potential impacts on the 2 marri trees being retained, one with an estimated age of 400 years, requires close consideration. Within the impact assessment and TPP, it is noted that trees with a TPZ incursion of greater than 50% will typically require removal. In that same report, it notes that one of the marris, the 400-year-old one, will endure a TPZ incursion of a massive 75.9%. It is felt the very real possibility of the 2 marri trees, which have significant amenity and character value to the community, not surviving the disturbance associated with this development is a highly relevant planning consideration. The nature of this specific development The nature of this specific development is also of particular concern. Surrounding these trees with car-centric, highly commercial operations is by no means cognizant of the community value attached to them. Whilst we understand it's not for this panel to consider what this land could be utilised for, we think it's important to highlight that there's many alternate land uses that would more appropriately incorporate the trees and reflect the community value attached to them. A restaurant with outdoor seating, outdoor movies, a garden centre, innovative infill housing or short-term accommodation with garden space around the trees would all be developments that would better reflect the community value attached to the trees. The applicant relies heavily on the successful retention of these 2 trees, mentioned numerous times in the applicant response to the DRP comments. The trees' retention is noted as a mitigating factor against the urban heat island effect. In addition, the trees' retention is noted as an integral element in support of the context and character and the landscape quality of the development. If the marri trees experience damage or stress from the development that ultimately necessitates their removal, we are left with a development highly exposed to the urban heat island effect, deficient in both context and character and landscaping quality. According to the WAPC Urban Canopy Dashboard, the suburb of Kalamunda is losing tree canopy on street blocks at a steady rate of 1% per period since 2016. With the planned removal of all other mature trees from the site, including 2 additional significant trees, as well as the potential impacts on the 2 marris being retained, this development stands to result in a substantial loss of canopy cover. From the perspective of the 2 majestic marri trees, it comes down to this being the wrong development on the wrong site, and we propose it be declined, echoing the sentiments confirmed in the Zorzi case and based on the unacceptable risks it poses to the ongoing viability of these highly valued community assets. We urge the DAP to exercise extreme caution in relying on the retention of these 2 trees as a safeguard for the landscape character and urban canopy of the development. And if proposal is to be approved, at a minimum, further redesign is asked for to reduce the footprint of the development and ensure the highest possible certainty of these trees' ongoing survival. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. I'll just check if there are any questions for you. Any panel members have questions of this presenter? No, not at this point, Hannah. Welcome to stay online for as long as you're able, but thank you for your presentation at this point. Next, we have Donna Garn. I'm not sure if I've pronounced your name correctly. Donna Garn, thank you. Donna is against the application. You're ready.
Good morning. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I too have grave concerns for the long-term viability of the two significant marri trees, which are classified as having high retention value and both have major encroachments into their tree protection zones, TPZs, tree 1 at 25.44% and tree 2 an incredible 75.9%. I'm using the old 2009 definition of TPZ to avoid confusion. The Arborite report states that trees with a TPZ incursion of greater than 40% typically require removal. For trees in this category that have high retention values, they require an additional viability assessment is recommended. Has this been independently done? According to the new AS 4970/2025 protection of trees on development sites, which has an emphasis not just on the survival of trees during construction, but their long-term viability, major encroachments carry a high level of risk and require strong evidence to justify proceeding. The project arborist must be engaged to demonstrate conclusively whether the tree can remain viable. If viability cannot be confidently proven, the tree may need to be removed or the design revised significantly. The Arborite report concludes that despite the enormous incursion into tree 2's TPZ, if the tree management strategy is followed, its health may well improve, and the change to reinforced concrete slab in large areas of the TPZ will be acceptable due to the porosity of concrete. Conversely, the City of Stirling, WA, in its publication Retaining Trees During Development, advises against concrete slabs in tree root zones due to root damage and because the slab, due to its impermeability, deprives feeder roots of oxygen and water. They promote the use of permeable surfaces to allow water and oxygen through, keeping trees healthy and encouraging them to grow deeper roots. They also advise no more than 10% incursion into the TPZ to avoid a slow death of the tree. In figure 7 of the Arborite assessment, a deep soil area within the TPZ of tree 2 is intersected by a path of permeable paving, despite this not being recommended by the arborist due to the root disruption involved in installation. Why is this still present in the current traffic diagrams? Permeable paving is not the same as pervious or permeable concrete, for which I have provided information in my written submission. In my opinion, if there's any chance of these majestic marri trees surviving the unacceptable incursions into their TPZs, especially given their shallow root plates and an increasingly hotter and drier climate, impervious concrete is the only option in the current design, along with the care recommendations of the arborist. I'm not convinced even that will ensure their long-term viability given the degree of encroachment. I propose to you that if this development application was subject to the new AS 4970/2025 criteria, the retention of these trees would require a significant revision of the development design layout. Perth has the lowest urban tree canopy in Australia. These mature marris provide crucial habitat for the endangered black cockatoos and are deeply valued by many people. I urge you to please consider your role in determining the survival of these magnificent trees.
Thank you very much, Donna. I'll just check if there are any questions for you. Panel members, any questions of this presenter? Thank you very much, Donna. Next, we have, I think, a joint presentation from Amara Turton and Rachel Davison. Am I correct in that assumption? Thank you. So effectively, you had 3 minutes each, but I think you're sort of speaking alternately on things, so 6 minutes together.
Yes, Chair, I'm going to present and then Rachel, if that's okay.
Oh, you're going to do what, sorry?
Chair, I'm going to present 3 minutes and then Rachel.
Yes, all right. Thank you. When you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, esteemed members of the Metro Outer Development Assessment Panel. Our names are Amara Turton and Rachel Davison, and we are residents of Kalamunda. We speak today in firm opposition to this proposal. Our objections are focused on three core tenets, which we believe have been significantly understated. Number one, the flawed justification for the parking shortfall. Number two, the inadequate traffic impact assessment and misrepresented parking supply. And number three, the unmitigated traffic risks that threaten public safety and community amenity. The City of Kalamunda officers justify the parking shortfall by citing the new Kalamunda Activity Centre Plan parking rates. This justification and the assessment that the shortfall is minor is misleading for multiple reasons. Firstly, the key parking rate of 4.5 bays per 100 square metres for retail outlet/store is based solely on surveys conducted by Shawmac in 2011. Since then, WA has become the fastest growing state in Australia, and Kalamunda is expecting over a 20% growth rate by 2046. Relying on 14-year-old data to assess current and future parking demand is simply reckless planning. Secondly, the officer's claim of no substantive redevelopment is evidently false. Developments like Aldi, Winnie's, the Zigzag Visitor Centre, and multiple other commercial and residential buildings have been developed in the town centre since 2011. Furthermore, the parking deficit is already critical, with the adjacent IGA and newly approved liquor store facing a shortfall of 15 parking bays on that site alone. Thirdly, the original 2011 survey scope was too broad, covering 70.72 hectares of land. This highlights the pressing need for the applicant to commission a new, current, localised parking survey to genuinely assess the on and off-street parking available within the immediate vicinity of this highly trafficked site. Finally, the proposed development actively worsens the situation. Despite the officer's claim of sufficient on-street car parking on Heath Road, this proposal intends to remove up to 7 on-street parking bays, potentially including a vital APROD bay on Heath Road, to facilitate the development's crossovers and intersection upgrade. This reduction, alongside Shawmac's projection of a future 1,400 parking bay shortfall within the town centre, means the parking issue is anything but minor. These facts contradict the assertion that our precinct can absorb further parking pressure. Our concerns also extend to the continued inaccuracies and omissions in the applicant's traffic impact assessment. Firstly, there are critical omissions in trip generation data. The TIA continues to omit analysis of the proposed dog wash, which comparable studies suggest could generate an estimated 128 additional daily weekday trips. The TIA also fails to account for the parking demand generated by the McDonald's play zone, which will inevitably attract dine-in customers, undermining the applicant's core justification that drive-through trade will soften on-street parking demand.
So following on from the points that Amara has just raised, the stated parking supply is inaccurate and non-compliant. 4 proposed bays are located between the building and the street, which is not permissible under the Kalamunda Activity Centre Plan for frontage type 3. These bays cannot be legitimately included in the total parking count. Finally, the usability of staff parking is compromised. The TIA states 3 staff bays must be vacated with service vehicles up to 10.7 metres long to manoeuvre. This stipulation is virtually impossible to police, risking service vehicle obstruction and posing a genuine safety risk to visitors and pedestrians visiting the site. This development also proposes an unacceptable risk to local road users and pedestrians. The Canning Road-Heath Road intersection is already constrained, as we've heard today. Disturbingly, the applicant's own remodelling still returned an F level of service for the right turn from Heath Road, with drivers facing projected delays of up to 127 seconds. This high traffic, car-centric development cannot be supported without traffic light signalisation. The proposed mitigation is fundamentally flawed as the developer continues to place the burden of responsibility on road users by assuming that they will perform a U-turn at the Kalamunda Road roundabout. This merely shunts the traffic problem onto another constrained area at the expense of local residents rather than honestly resolving the existing safety conflict. The only genuine mitigation is signalisation, and this cost should be borne by the developer, not ratepayers. Kalamunda Activity Centre Plan itself identifies inconsistent and illegible pedestrian crossings as a current constraint. The car-centric nature of this proposal will limit walkability and add extra vehicular and pedestrian safety risks to an already pre-existing complex site, which tragically saw a pedestrian fatality just 55 metres away in 2017. Dear members of the panel, in conclusion, this proposal fails on critical planning grounds. The Kalamunda Activity Centre Plan has identified the existing Red Rooster as a current land use constraint located on a prominent entry site into our township. Inserting another fast food outlet at the entry to our town centre is in direct opposition to the unique village feel and home in the forest identity that attracts visitors to Kalamunda and that our community strives to uphold. The parking shortfall is not minor. The TIA remains inadequate and safety risks are largely unmitigated. The non-compliant design continues to fail to respect the context and character of Kalamunda. Approval will worsen congestion, compromise public safety, permanently damage our unique amenity and have resounding negative effects on our community into the future and beyond. We urge the panel to reject this proposal and we thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I'll just check for questions. Any questions of these presenters? No, not at this point. Thank you very much. I think next we have Adam Hort, MLA, speaking against the application, and Adam is online.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can indeed. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm Adam Hort, the member for Kalamunda, and I appreciate this isn't a matter before Parliament, but I'm here today because of the volume of concern that's been raised with me by local residents. Many people care very deeply about this proposal, but for various reasons haven't been able to either make their own submission or attend here today. So I'm here to speak on their behalf and add my voice to theirs. I focus my comments on the planning related matters, but I do want to acknowledge that there's a large amount of community feedback, and while heartfelt and genuine, that some of that may fall outside what's considered relevant under the current planning legislation. So I have kept it constrained for that reason. For most people, this isn't about being anti-McDonald's. I support investment in our town centres, and there's a place for businesses like this in our district, but I don't believe that this location is appropriate for a development of this kind. Traffic is one of the major concerns. Canning Road is already under immense pressure. Anyone can see that lives in the area or works in the area, and especially during school hours and the evening peak. This development would introduce a large volume of additional vehicles, including drive-through traffic, at an intersection that's already struggling. From my conversations with the City of Kalamunda, I understand that this intersection is projected to fail by 2030, and it's hard to see how this proposal wouldn't bring that forward. The impact won't just be at the intersection, however. We're likely to see overflow into the surrounding residential streets like Heath Road and Recreation Road. And these are local roads, many without footpaths and with limited visibility, yet they carry a significant pedestrian traffic. That includes school children, families, and elderly residents walking to nearby shops and facilities. There have been incidents reported, including vehicles and pedestrians in this area. Turning these local streets into rat runs is not just an inconvenience, it's a real safety risk that changes the way people live and move throughout our neighbourhoods. Parking is another issue. The proposal includes only the 13 general use bays when 28 are required under the scheme. We all know what happens when there's not enough parking. It spills into our residential streets, to surrounding car parks, and impacts nearby businesses and community groups. And finally, there's the question of local character. A large pylon sign, a substantial building setback, reduced awnings, limited glazing is a standard corporate design that does not reflect the home in the forest identity that our town centre has worked hard to preserve. It's not just about compliance. In the community's opinion, it's about values, and it's about what kind of place we want Kalamunda to be and whether this proposal fits that vision. So on behalf of the many residents who've contacted me, I ask that you give this application the very careful scrutiny that it deserves. I cannot support it in its current location for the reasons that I have outlined, and I suspect a vast majority of the community feel exactly the same way. So thank you for your time this morning, panel, and apologies for everyone in the room for not being there in person.
Thank you, Adam. I'll just check if any panel members have questions for you. No, not at this point. Thank you, but you're welcome to stay online for as long as
Thank
you're able to. Thank you. I would also just draw attention before I go to other presentations to written submissions that we have received and considered as part of our declaration from Diana Rosman, Anthony Jelarovich, Amanda Newell, Tony Warwick, Alan Blackburn, Tara Keld, Andrea Doost, President of PNC Kalamunda High School, and Susan Stitt. Just noting those written submissions. I'll now go to other presentations, and these are presentations in support of the application. We have two presentations granted today from Mark Ray of Planning yes, that's right, isn't it? Planning Solutions, and Benham Board Bar Transcorp. So I've allowed Mark you a couple of minutes to respond, but also 3 minutes for your presentation 4. So that's 5 in total. I know that you probably want to answer responses as you go through that 5 minutes. And Benham, you have 3 minutes. Which one of you wants to go first? Mark, you want to go first. Very good. Thank you.
Sorry, Presiding Member, we also have several members of our project.
Indeed. I'll just read those names out so that we're all aware. We have Todd Wood from McDonald's. We have David Kadidi from Arborite Tree Management Solutions. Stephanie Voon from Place Fabric. Matt Moyle from Lloyd George Acoustics. Andrew Jennings Lowe from Hindley and Associates. And do we have Brian McCubbin too? We're not sure.
This is Samsung on there, but I don't know.
Possibly, I'm not certain.
No, okay. But obviously the rest of that team are available for questions at the given time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you and good morning. Benham and I will be speaking directly to the deferral reasons this morning.
Do you have a PowerPoint or anything? No. Just speaking.
As I mentioned, we do have members of our consultant team that are available online that can answer questions in relation to tree preservation, the acoustic assessment and design related matters. Deferral reason 4, parking. The city's RAR addendum provides a comprehensive response regarding the proposed parking supply and context of the surrounding area. I will briefly add the scheme parking requirement is designed to apply across the entire local government area. It forms part of the scheme that was gazetted in 2007. In the context of the Kalamunda Activity Centre, the approved precinct structure plan recommends a reduced parking rate due to a demonstrated oversupply of parking in the town centre. That is the current approved planning framework. It is a well-established planning principle that site-specific, context-related requirements should be considered over broad generic requirements. Under this approved precinct structure plan, 17 bays would be required for this development, resulting in a surplus of 6 bays. Expanding on this, in 2024, the WAPC released a planning manual to provide guidance on the parking rates for non-residential uses in the Perth and Peel regions. Under these guidelines, the recommended minimum parking rate for fast food outlets is further reduced to 1 bay per 50 square metres of public floor space, meaning that only 8 parking bays would be required for this development under those guidelines. Deferral reason 5, trading hours and amenity. In response to the concerns raised by the community, trading hours for both uses have been reduced from 24/7, 5:30 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. 7 days a week. The city's RAR addendum demonstrates the reduced trading hours align with the established early morning and nighttime trading operations of several existing food and hospitality businesses within the town centre. We do appreciate that this is a nighttime trading business in early morning. We work hard to address the amenity impacts, and this is no different. This application has included a number of assessments that deal with these amenity impacts prepared by suitably qualified consultants. And they've included an environmental noise report, transport report, an odour assessment, lighting assessment, and a waste management plan. In combination with the reduced trading hours, these assessments demonstrate compliance with the relevant standards and a better alignment with the existing activities in the Kalamunda District Centre. And finally, in relation to deferral reason 6, some presenters this morning have suggested that the DRP's advice is grounds to not support this application. Whilst we acknowledge the DRP advice, the purpose of design review is to assist the statutory planning assessment process. This advice is one of several competing considerations that need to be weighed up when assessing a proposal. In this case, the officers have addressed the relevant considerations, including the building design, and continue to support the proposal. The crux of DRP's reservation towards the development is focused on the uses being a car-centric typology, which doesn't provide an active edge due to the presence of the drive-through. This advice needs to be balanced against the fact that the land use is, and includes a drive-through component, it is a permitted land use. Fast food outlets with drive-throughs have certain operational requirements. These operational requirements must be considered and integrated into the site planning and development design. Following the first DRP meeting, which we received similar feedback, we appointed Place Fabric retail architects to build on and improve the design outcome for this development. As a result, we've produced an outcome that elevates it well beyond any corporate standard McDonald's development that makes it unique to Kalamunda. In this situation, we've made a genuine effort to respond to the DRP's advice whilst balancing a built form outcome that retains the operational characteristics of the permitted land use. The design of this development has been carefully considered to create a level of street presence and pedestrian connection. Importantly, this design integrates elements and materiality that align with the context and character of Kalamunda. This has included brickwork, timber, laterite stone, earthy colour tones and pitch roof elements. This development strikes an appropriate balance between preserving and integrating two significant marri trees into the overall design, accommodating the operational requirements of the permitted land use, and creating a level of interest and presentation along Canning Road. For these reasons, we respectfully request the panel approve the application.
Thank you very much, Mark. I'll just flow on, I think, through to Benham, and then we can ask questions of both of you at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member and panel members. I want to use my brief time opportunity to respond to Mr. Suedesky's written submission and deputation this morning. And with respect, that is because there has been some very strong, in my opinion, inappropriate, incorrect, out of context and unfounded assertions and statements made. With respect to reasons 1 and 2 of the deferral, which I'm going to focus on. There are 3 elements that forms the basis of Mr. Suedesky's opinions relevant to those items 1 and 2. The first one is the activity center study recommendations. That report recommended a couple of options for the intersection treatments for council's consideration, not blind implementation. Council has very carefully considered those options as part of this process. And in my view, the city's approach to determine an appropriate treatment that with the development traffic results in similar intersection operations if there was no development and no treatment at the intersection. And as per the recommendation of the peer review, city has taken on board to undertake an area-wide study, the time frame up to 2030 that treatment allows to undertake the area-wide study and deal with the whole city centre and Canning Road corridor. The second element was the science of traffic distribution. In my opinion, and with respect, Mr. Swiderski has taken a very simplistic approach and simply look at the population distribution. This type of land use consists of two key elements of traffic. One is called the primary traffic, that the traffic decides to go there from either home or work and returns to those facilities. And the second is the passive traffic. And just simply look at the residential distribution, therefore, is going to be in an appropriate and simplistic way. And you have to consider a range of other elements, which are the road network layout, traffic pattern, travel times, other opportunities and constraints. And I'd like to deal with it under item 3, but I just mentioned that distribution after provision of additional information to the city and peer review has been accepted. And the third element, of course, is the peer review report. And in my opinion, some out of context elements of that has been presented. And what Mr. Swiderski failed to mention, that the peer review made a number of recommendations, and all those recommendations have been addressed either by city or taken on board, either by city or by the applicant. And the resultant revised TIA, which was produced back in April, which was in front of the panel members at that time, was signed off and endorsed at that time.
3 minutes now.
If I may make a very brief statement, it's because there was other presenters did mention the issue of the pram ramp and Acrod Bay. We are at the concept stage. We still need to go through a detailed design process for that intersection upgrade. And I can say 100% confidently that those issues that were raised can be addressed through the detailed design. Thank you
very much. I'll now check with members who may have questions for either of you or other members of your team. Yes, Deputy Mayor Ritchie, you have some questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just my question was regarding the trading hours, which I acknowledge have been modified for the 5:30 to 11:30. Could you give some advice on when service vehicles and so on are likely to service the site? Is that likely to be outside those trading hours, or would that be inclusive of that with deliveries, rubbish collection, all of those ancillary services?
It's certainly intended to undertake servicing within daytime hours, so not even outside of the nighttime trading period. Under the noise regulations, it's my understanding that waste collection has to occur between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. anyway. So we find that the appropriate time to do that is just during daytime hours.
Thank you.
Any further questions, Deputy Mayor Ritchie?
No.
All right, thank you. Mayor Thomas, did you have questions of these presenters or members of their team?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you. I can come back to you should something occur to either of you. Panel members in the room, questions of the presenters or their team. Member Page.
Yes, just a couple. I would like to talk a bit about the tree protection methodology. So if you do have your arborist online, there are obviously some concerns that have been raised about the methodology that's being proposed and how successful that would be. Could I just have some comments?
David, are you on?
Yes. Can everyone hear me fine?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So was there something specific with the plan that you had in mind, or?
Yes, look, there've been submitters that have raised quite specific concerns today about the methodology that's being referenced, the tree protection methodology. I just want your comment on the appropriateness of the methodology that's being proposed, the Australian standard being applied and so on.
Okay, so I guess we need some clarification around the incursion levels. So I think it's probably it needs to have some context there. So basically an incursion is anything that happens within that TPZ zone. So just putting down materials, for example, would be considered an incursion. So the total incursion of the tree is around about 70%, I think. But I think somewhere, well, in the report, I believe I've addressed that and sort of said that the primary concern that I have is root removal in that tree protection zone. And through collaboration and consultation, we've actually come up with a plan to, I guess, with the materials that they've decided to use, we've eliminated or mitigated that need for root removal. And that was my biggest concern. So actually that incursion level is basically dramatically reduced. And I believe that the plan will not actually result in any root severance. And actually, the remaining TPZ provided is on the larger scale. I've definitely worked on some other projects where we don't get the opportunity for such high levels, I guess. So I was quite pleased with that. But my primary goal is to focus on tree health, because I believe that the tree has basically been in a mild state of decline for quite some years now, and I believe that's due to the existing land use of the tree around. So the compaction levels, I guess, being used as a car bay. So I'm hoping with this plan that we can actually get in there and remediate some of this soil, which will do wonders for the tree, in my opinion. Once again, it's a living organism. Nothing can be guaranteed, but I have a high level of confidence that we can actually improve the health of this tree based on these plans.
Thank you. I have one more question. It's about hours of operation, probably to you.
Could I just add a question for the arborist while we've got him? Thank you for your response to Member Page. Could I just ask, following construction, and the laying down of hard stand areas and sealing of those, etc. Did you have any comment in terms of what that should be in order to maintain the health of those trees? Would that be a recommendation or something that would come from the detailed tree protection plan that the city has suggested should be prepared, or is that a different matter altogether?
No, I definitely think that a tree protection plan is in order, and I have one attached to that report. It's a little bit hard to come up with a finalised tree protection plan based on a concept plan, for example. So it would definitely need to be reinforced and reviewed once the final plans were approved. But I believe in the document it's pretty comprehensive, and it outlines a concept plan, I guess, as you will, for the tree protection plan.
Right, and do you see that tree protection plan being followed through when hard stand areas are in place in the final plan? Is that the intention? Yeah.
Definitely the intention is to, because obviously we're making incursions into this tree protection plan. But like I said, when those plans have been finalised, my goal is to then fence off this area. So once we've outlined the area that we have available to us, we will fence off that area, and it will be protected with like hard fencing and signage, nominating me as the project arborist. So any further incursions into that zone will effectively, hopefully, have to come through me. And then that can be done in a controlled manner and in alignment with the tree protection plan that we outlined, that we've established.
Thank you for that answer. I'll go back to Member Page.
Thank you. Hours of operation. So you've responded to the deferral reason by recommending a reduction in the hours of operation. And I note, and I'll have a question for them separately, I note the city officers have not recommended a condition of approval to limit those hours. Is that because you oppose imposition of such a condition?
We would be agreeable to a condition to restrict the trading hours.
Thank you, Mr. Ray. That's all I have.
Okay.
Yeah, I just had a question back to the arborist. The comment was made that these trees, the marries, have got surface roots or roots very close to the surface. Can you confirm that?
Yes, I can confirm that. We can see that through the photos, and definitely there's yeah, I imagine compaction and soil erosion has played a little part in that. But yeah, there's definitely surface roots visible from photos.
Thank you. Can I ask some more
Please do.
questions? Mr. Reid, there was talk about comments made that the two serving bays for McDonald's, if you go through the drive-through, you've got the waiting bays, as it were. They're shown on the site proposed lot 2. That's correct?
Yes.
What mechanism is there to reserve those? I mean, these are 2 new lots. I presume it's the intention, there's a possibility that one or both of these, or one of the lots, could be sold off to somebody else. Where's the provision to have reciprocal access for traffic and parking across these 2 sites? Because I couldn't see a condition.
We have submitted a subdivision application at the time of lodgement of the development application. That has been deferred to allow for a decision to be made on the DA. That subdivision, plan of subdivision, includes a reciprocal access and reciprocal parking easements. So it'd be dealt with under that subdivision approval.
Okay. Could it be dealt with as well under this approval?
We wouldn't have an issue with it because it's going to be dealt with anyway through the subdivision.
Okay. Another comment, Mr. Bourdbay, you might be able to help regarding the relocation of services within the Heath Road verges when you do works to remove bays or do any sort of traffic works in that intersection. One of the presenters, one of the submitters mentioned that that hasn't been looked at. Has it been looked at all?
It has. That was the first thing that we did before look at any option for that intersection, to do a search and establish what services are available. So they have been identified, and whatever needs to be dealt with will be dealt with within the design process. So that has been done.
Just to expand on that, we did a underground services survey to demonstrate that it was actually feasible and there was capacity to widen that crossover section.
Some of those costs can be quite expensive.
Yes.
And you're satisfied that that can be accommodated within?
Well, in this instance, we don't have any significant power poles. It's the risk is what's below the ground. That's why we did that exercise.
Okay. The signalisation of Canning Road and Heath Road, I mean, that's probably, is that in terms of demand warranted at this stage?
Well, definitely not. Signalisation has got benefits and disbenefits. One of the major disbenefit is that you force the traffic to stop and you create queues on Canning Road, which could impact other crossovers, other intersections. But certainly that solution hasn't been completely ruled out by city, but that is subject to the outcome of the corridor-wide study that city would want to undertake in order to determine what would be the ultimate appropriate solution, not only for this intersection, but other intersection, other crossovers in the city centre.
There was comment made about the calculation of parking demand and the number of bays for the car wash, sorry, the accessible bays required. This proposal shows 2 accessible bays. Is that in conformity with current standards?
I understand it is.
Because I think there was a comment made you may need more.
No, it is in conformance with.
That may have been in the context of deleting the accessible bay on the road at present.
Well, that accessible bay hasn't been deleted. As I said, as part of the detailed design process, if there is a requirement to accessible to come up to latest standard and retained, that will be done. If established that that accessible bay in that location may not be required, then it wouldn't be retained.
Okay. One of the issues was noise, particularly on the adjacent residential properties.
We've got Matt Moyle, haven't we, from Lloyd George Acoustics. Matt, are you available online?
Hello, yes, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Would you like the question repeated? Did you hear it?
Yes, please repeat it. Thank you.
Okay, well, it was to do with the queuing at the pay and pickup windows of the, of the proposed McDonald's. There was no mention made at this stage or any submissions regarding the auto wash, because that has seemed to have not drawn too many submissions or any submissions regarding noise. So I mean, from experience, I think all of us have been to a McDonald's, and you know, when you pull into to pay and pick up, there's noises, not necessarily car doors opening and closing because you're in the car. But you wind the window down, people in the car may have music playing loudly. Are you confident you've addressed the noise issue on the adjoining residential properties for those sorts of noises?
Yeah, we've addressed the noises that are relevant for assessment under the noise protection regulations. Ordering noise from the premises itself, the McDonald's premises, by way of, say, the speaker system, has been included in the assessment as well. Music noise from vehicles would fall under the individual premises of the vehicle itself, so not subject to assessment for the McDonald's. So yeah, like I said, within the framework of the regulations, we've demonstrated compliance with all requirements.
How do you respond to one of the submitters who said you got it wrong in terms of levels that you've used and what the submitter said was the case?
Yep, I'm aware that there was some there was an issue with the assigned level determined within my report. However, from what I've been able to go back and look at, it seems as though the submitter has not included the subject site in their percentage calculation of land area. So that is basically a misunderstanding of the application of the regs. So yeah, as I've stated in the report, we've remained conservative and we've followed methodology that aligns with accepted Australian and industry standards, as well as that published by the Department of Water and Environmental Regulation.
Okay, and you've got an acoustic wall there that there was comment made that the air conditioning units on the roof provide a direct line for noise emission into the residential properties. Is there a screening process or facility that could enclose that air conditioning, the air conditioning condensers or compressors?
In our review of the architectural plans, and this was something that we pointed out early on when doing the assessment, screening would be advisable. That's solid screening, not just visual. Yes. And that is something that is implemented in the design of the rooftop plant area. So yeah, they should not be visible, and obviously those screens will be needed to be installed in such a way that they provide the required acoustic mitigation. There is also significant retaining wall there, which I'm not sure if that's been correctly understood by the submitter as well. So where you have the masonry wall, it's also atop a constructed retaining wall, such that it has an effective wall height of 3.5 meters roughly near the McDonald's. So yeah, I think possibly some misunderstanding and misrepresentation there.
What about enclosing the queuing area for the pay and pickup? It shows about 4 or 5 bays there, 4 or 5 vehicles. Enclosing that would give further noise attenuation, I presume?
Yeah, possibly. It's not something we've assessed in detail. As I've stated, the noise wall is quite high relative to the car level, so already quite effective. Yeah, it's not something we've assessed in detail, but it has the potential to improve the situation. But at the end of the day, yeah, compliance is already demonstrated.
Thank you.
Did you want to refer to Place Fabric as retail architects on that particular question?
Well, yes, I could do that just as I think it's there not as an architectural feature, but as a noise attenuation.
But it's practicality. Stephanie, are you available online to respond to Member Coltas's consideration?
It's just rejoining.
Just rejoining. Hello, Stephanie. Member Coltas.
Sorry, could you just repeat that question again? I just heard the tail end.
In the context of the noise emanating from the McDonald's, I'm presuming one of the major areas of concern for the adjoining residents in the property adjacent to the McDonald's store, it's the vehicles that will be queuing when they pay and pick up for their products. That area there, I asked the noise consultant, is it feasible to enclose that area to further reduce the noise emanating from there?
Are you trying to?
Yes, but from a architectural point of view, what's your response?
Sorry, I'm just trying to. So, are you asking if we can essentially box out the entire drive-through? Is that what you're trying to suggest?
Well, not the area for ordering, because I'm assuming there's a roof over there, and the noise.
You're just referring to that
about the
on the southern boundary.
On the southern boundary.
Well, there's currently an awning that extends off the boundary, off the building. I suppose there is an option to extend it to the boundary wall, but I suppose that it would be whether the acoustic consultant feels that would actually help significantly, because the boundary wall, as he stated earlier, is quite high, and that in itself helps significantly with the acoustic transfer over to the adjoining lot. So is the acoustic
yeah, that's correct. Yeah. 3.5 meters is quite a significant barrier, especially when you have
that is a significant wall.
Yeah, when you have sources quite close to the wall as well, the effect is obviously improved. In my opinion, in closing it, I mean, this is outside my area of expertise, but it may have a negative effects potentially with vehicle fumes and things like that. I have seen it used in some situations, but generally
like you said, the improvements may not outweigh or be significant enough to be over and above what's already in place.
All right, thank you. I don't further questions.
Thank you. I just have one question. In terms of operational management, how would that normally be handled for a facility of this nature in terms of dealing with litter, dealing with complaints, those sorts of things? Would it be normal that you would be obliged to prepare an operational management plan which might cover those things? Would you have any objection to that being a requirement?
It certainly has been imposed on other proposals, particularly in proximity to residential land uses. So it's not a requirement that we would oppose.
Very good, thank you. I might ask the city the same question. Any other questions of the presenters now for the applicant? If not, we will then invite questions of the local government officers. We can obviously come back should we need to. The local government officers we have available are Cardia Mariani, Regan Travers, Prasanth Loku, and Al Subedi. So I'll invite the elected members first. If you have questions of officers, Mayor Thomas?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Ritchie, did you have questions of the officers?
No.
Thank you. Panel members in the room, Member Page.
Yes, I have a few. Thank you. When was your activity centre plan approved? I know that it was since the last meeting, but exactly when was that?
Yeah, 1 second. It was approved on the 9th of May 2025.
Okay, great. And can you tell me, can I assume that the approval authority was comfortable with the traffic modelling and information that underpinned it?
Through the chair, yes is the short answer. The context of that plan is that it was the original version was prepared prior to 2020, and it actually sat with the commission from 2020 to about 2023. So if there had been a quick turnaround on the structure plan approval, we might not have seen data that appears less timely. So yeah, that's an unfortunate circumstance that it's only recently that the structure plan has been approved, but there were delays outside of the city's control. So
that's all right. I'm just trying to get to that there were no issues raised by the commission about the traffic transport modelling, were there?
No.
Okay. Now, in terms of transport, one of the submitters has suggested that you're ignoring the recommendations of your own activity centre plan transport report. Can you comment on that for me, please?
I can. I think the city acknowledges the data. It's not a case at all that the city is disregarding the advice that it's been received and has been included in that structure plan. I think what we are doing is balancing that data with the application that's in front of us and our understanding of the contemporary situation or context of the development. It's really a starting point. That information in the structure plan, clearly it indicates that for the intent of the precinct structure plan to be realised, there's quite a bit of work to do from a traffic perspective along that section of Canning Road in order to achieve the lofty aspirations of that plan. So what we do know is that there is it is going to be something that we're going to have to address in the future, because it's not, this isn't going to be the last development application that we have. We've made some progress internally on our strategy, Kalamunda Moving, and have it hasn't been formally committed yet, but we are expecting to revisit that strategy, and within the next 2 years, that will be quite a significant project with the aim of unlocking the city's town centre.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, something that's been raised a couple of times, or a number of times today, is that the other fast food outlet in this area or in your town centre is cited as a constraint, and I believe in the activity centre plan. Can you comment, and it's been linked to this proposal and linked to substantiate concerns about this proposal. Could you comment on that statement for me in your activity centre plan, and whether or not it is relevant in this circumstance?
I think an activity centre plan looks at the context of what's quite an old town centre. Recently, I had a look at the original hand-drawn architectural perspective of that building, which were dated 1984. The town centre is quite old. It's important to have regard to the context, and clearly the structure plan and the design guidelines aspire to achieve something much different, more contemporary built form, a lot more nil setbacks, and we are seeing, although there are very, very few recent developments in the town centre, we are seeing some of those principles applied. On the close by to this one, there was a recent approval for a liquor store which had a nil setback and continued the awning of the IGA next to it. We also have some proposal multi-storey building on Barber Street, not too far away, which also proposed a development that's more consistent with that built form. So I think the references to, you know, is that the standard we want to continue through the revitalisation or renewal of the town centre. It is an older style of built form and not consistent with the aspirations of the new precinct structure plan or design guidelines.
Okay, thank you. If I can turn attention to the design review panel review, all three of them. Is it your view that the panel for this application focused on matters of design only, or did they factor in broader issues, and does that align with your terms of reference for your design review panel?
The city's, I guess, guidelines for the panel and how they represent or are built into the planning process is set in our local planning policy. In that it talks to DRP members being independent, providing a professional view in their area of expertise. We did find that there was a departure from some of the 10 principles of design that was coming through in some of the comments that we received from the design review panel members, but that's not something that is specifically prohibited in the city's policy, which guides the design review panel members. They are given some freedom to comment, and they are encouraged to provide some frank and robust feedback to try and lift proposals where they see that that technical opinion being of benefit. So it was a little bit different to usual, but not stepping outside the framework that has been given to them.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions about conditions. Condition 1, you're continuing to recommend that condition. Isn't that condition redundant now the changes have been made to the MRS?
Through the chair, yes. Yes, I think it was removed, the previous version, but it was just carried over.
Good. All good, thank you. And then just on the hours of operation, so the applicant has indicated now they wouldn't be opposed to a condition. You've suggested in the report you don't think it's necessary. Could you comment on that for me, please?
Thank you for that question. I guess the restriction on operating hours was a deferral reason of the panel. The original recommendation of the city didn't have a restriction on operating hours. I think from a planning perspective, you can see with the other businesses that have been mentioned, currently they are not operating too late into the evening, but the city's planning framework doesn't specifically restrict that operation. So we do not have an objection to a condition restricting the operating hours as they've been suggested by the applicant. But as it's not part of the planning framework and not something that we would like to arbitrarily apply or accidentally set a standard for other businesses, we chose not to recommend a condition to that effect.
Sure, thank you. That's it, thank you.
Okay. Other questions of the officers, member?
Yes, one of the design guidelines or ideas or the aspirations is to continue awnings along the street front. Given that virtually every property south of this proposed McDonald's is residential and reasonably new residential, that would be the extension of that along Canning Road would be a bit difficult in the current context, wouldn't
it? Thank you, member. I do agree. This site is on the fringe of the town centre. It would be an awning that would end at the edge of the property or edge of the development, not have any, I guess, legible connection into other awnings. So the benefit of having an awning in this location would be quite limited.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Member Cortez?
No.
Okay. I have a couple of questions of the city officers, please. Discussed earlier with the applicant operational management, dealing with, ongoing issues after occupancy, things like litter or things like complaints or so on and so forth. Would the city normally have a condition of that nature? I couldn't see it in the scope that's been provided in the RAR. And just if it's not there, would the city have any objection to such a condition?
Thank you, member. The city does not have any concerns with management plan condition being applied.
Okay, thank you for that. One other question from me. We heard quite a lot earlier on about tree protection. It's obviously vitally important to make sure that these mature trees give the best opportunity to survive. As condition 11 talks to tree protection plan, do you see there being a link with the outcome of that with condition 16, which talks to the hard stand area? Should there be a cross-reference to condition 11 within condition 16 to make sure those recommendations or outcomes of the study are continuing through the actual development? or do you feel that that is inevitably going to be the case?
Thank you, presiding member. The conditions would work either way. They are essentially dealing with a similar potential outcome, and there is definite overlap. So they could be independent or a combined condition.
Okay, thank you. And one other, and it relates back to the issues of design review and character and so forth. I couldn't see anything in here that talked to a schedule of materials. Forgive me if I've overlooked it, but would it normally be the case, given the steps that you've taken with the applicant, to ensure there's a reflection of the local character and materials, to have something of that nature here to make sure that the schedule of materials at the point of construction is appropriate?
Thank you, presiding member. A lot of the discussion about materials and finishes occurred quite early on with the applicant, and they did make changes, and a lot of what the city would expect to be done is included in the application package already.
Right.
There wouldn't be anything substantive that would warrant an additional condition.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for that response. And just one last one, in terms of street parking, loss of street parking. Questions were raised earlier about what happens to the IGA overflow parking, etc. Could you just, the RAR seemed to me to present your consideration of that, but could you just explain to me, you're satisfied that with pram ramps and changing of on-street bays and, you know, obviously this development now occurring on what has been an informal car park, that you're satisfied that there's adequate publicly available parking around for all users?
Thank you, presiding member. The city is satisfied that in a town centre context, the loss of a couple of on-street, a handful of on-street bays to facilitate an improved intersection, which subject to some further discussions on final designs to deal with pedestrian access and that type of thing, is a reasonable outcome. There have been, and we've mentioned it in the responsible authority report, that there's a number of applications that have been processed nearby with coming to a similar conclusion on car parking, and that there is ample car parking available in the town centre, and it is appropriate if you were, in a planning sense, if you're going to vary a car parking requirement, you can have a high level of confidence that a town centre is a reasonable place to do so. There is a loss that's noted, but as the report states, that is considered minor by the city.
Thank you for that response. Are there any further questions of the officers before we move ahead? No. Okay. At this point, before we move to the item, any member of the panel need a short comfort break? Are we happy to roll on through? Good to carry on through? Okay. So that closes question time and presentation time, and we therefore refer to the item and the responsible authority report that has been prepared for this agenda. And in the first instance, I would be looking for a mover for that recommendation, which is to accept this application as fast food outlet motor vehicle wash, and to approve it in accordance with a number of conditions. Is there a mover, please? Member Page moves. Is there a seconder, please? Member Coltas seconds. Thank you. Member Page, as mover, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you, presiding member. With the previous meeting on this matter, I indicated I wouldn't be comfortable approving the proposal unless there was documented agreement to the scope of intersection upgrades. There was vendor traffic impact assessment to support those upgrades, and unless the agreed scope of works was implemented ahead of occupation and not 12 months later, as was previously suggested. That technical work has now been done. The city is satisfied with it, and condition 5 now reflects that the works need to be done prior to occupation and not sometime in the future. I also see that the city is satisfied that the scope of the upgrades will appropriately manage traffic generated by proposed development until such time that a broader intersection upgrade is undertaken to cater for broader traffic and movement implications of the activity centre plan. And to me, that is reasonable in terms of need and nexus for this particular development. So in my view, the work that has now been done addresses those first 3 reasons for deferral of the application earlier this year. Deferral reason number 4 related to the parking shortfall in the context of other parking shortfalls approved in the area. And thanks to the city for providing that information. It's been useful. That shows what has been approved, and for confirming that the parking shortfall approved for other developments in this area were not approved on the basis that parking for those developments would always be available for their customers on this site. So there's nothing in place that suggests that the IGA customers have any right to use the site, and that any of those other businesses need this parking or have an agreement to use the site for parking. And the city has actually confirmed that the now approved activity centre plan actually encourages reduced on-site parking in the town centre to create movement on street and through the centre. And that the parking ratio will result in only 17 bays being required, with a surplus of 6 bays being provided. And that reduced parking ratio is actually very common through activity centres, and it's actually guided by state government planning policy that suggests that that is something that should be taken into account. So given that the parking provided aligns with the recently approved activity centre plan and its parking ratio, that would make it very difficult for this panel to reasonably refuse the application on the basis of the parking that's being provided. So I'm comfortable that the information adequately addresses reason for deferral number 4. Deferral reason number 5 required some evidence-based justification for the proposed 24/7 trading hours. In the interim, as we've heard, the applicant has reconsidered those hours and suggested reducing them to align with the operating hours of other comparable developments elsewhere and in the town centre. And I do take on board what the city has said about they don't think it's necessary to lock those hours in via a planning condition. But I think this is a slightly different case to maybe some of the others that the city will be dealing with in the future. And I think given the location of the site adjoining residential neighbours, my preference would be to restrict them in the first instance. In the future, 10 years, 15, 20, whatever, if situation changes and it proves not to be an issue, the operators can then apply to vary the hours if there's merit in doing so. It's very hard to pull back on that if we don't limit them in the first place. So I would therefore at this point, before I talk more to the substantive, like to move an amendment.
Yes.
To restrict the applicant's proposed operating hours via an extra condition.
Yes.
That condition, and I think it would be 26, would then read: the hours of operation of both the fast food outlet and the motor vehicle wash shall be restricted to 5:30 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. 7 days a week. All servicing should occur within these operating hours, and the operating hours shall not be varied without the prior approval of the City of Kalamunda. And I'll talk more to that if I have a second.
I'm happy to second that.
Thank you, member. So the applicant has suggested that be comfortable with the restricted hours of operation. The city has not opposed that, although it's not their standard practice. I just think it's prudent to include these as a condition of approval to enable the city the ability to manage any future amenity impacts on nearby residents if necessary. Although the operations of proposal are modelled to fall within the thresholds of the noise regulations, not all noise is included in that modelling for the purposes of adherence to the noise regs. And I think picking up on Member Coltas's questions about architectural refinements to manage noise, I do acknowledge the height of that wall, and generally walls of that height are excellent noise inhibitors or restrictors, but I just think that coupled with restricting these hours would assist in mitigating any impacts of noise that could be generated by the development on nearby residents.
Thank you. I'll just briefly concur with that as seconder to this amendment. And I think beyond noise, there are other aspects of activity around land uses of this nature, which given the specific context and proximity to residential, it is appropriate and has a real planning purpose to restrict hours of operation of this nature to ensure that its operation doesn't unduly impact through the nighttime hours those adjoining properties. So I'm happy to support that motion. Are there any other speakers on amending motion 1 as put by Member Page? If there are no other speakers, happy to go straight to vote on this. Those in favour of amending motion 1, show of hands, please. Those against? So that's both elected members are against. Okay, the motion is carried 3-2. Thank you. Back with you, Member Page.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Back to deferral reason number 6, and this reason was to enable the city's design review panel or the chair of that panel to do a further review and to provide comments on the amended plans. This was done, and the panel did agree there'd been some improvements, and I do acknowledge that there is there aren't still enough green boxes to make people happy. And in fact, that whole traffic light system is of a concern to me personally because how it's interpreted by people. And I suggest that that is probably being looked at being improved in the future. I acknowledge the issues originally raised by the design review panel, but I don't agree with all of them. And nor do I need to in order to make a properly informed planning decision. I don't need to agree with all those issues that are raised. And I do need to make it clear at this point that I am very supportive of design review panels. Applicants, officers and decision makers like this panel rely a lot on their independent design advice, and that assists greatly in improving and enhancing design of development proposals generally. But they're not a decision-making body, and nor does their advice have any statutory weight. It is one input into the planning assessment and decision-making process. And from time to time, the assessors can and do disagree with comments made by the panel, particularly if the comments touch on compliance with the planning framework and or raise issues which are beyond the role and scope of the panel. It's ultimately up to the city to assess whether the 10 principles of State Planning Policy 7.0 have been met with the help of the design review panel, and it is up to the decision maker to decide whether we are happy to approve or not. In the case of this proposal, I'm of the view that the design of buildings is fit for purpose. It's a permitted use in this zone, and the design is fit for the purpose of the use. And I do have the view that the fast food outlet is an example of a more contemporary and thoughtful design with appropriate materials, articulation and relief that will allow it to blend well with the scale and character of the rest of the town centre. In reflecting on the key issues raised by submitters, to me it seems that it's really the fast food component of this development that's causing most concern. I'm not saying that there's not other issues that are causing concerns, but that was quite dominant. And again, I'm going to the fact that the fast food outlet is a permitted use under the structure plan that has recently been approved by the city. It's been approved by the commission, and that structure plan, which is the strategic document guiding all planning decisions, suggests that a fast food outlet is a permitted use. That would make it very difficult for this panel to refuse the application because it's a fast food outlet. Very difficult indeed. It's also in an activity centre, and there are other non-residential uses on 3 sides. I acknowledge there's a residential development to the south, and there are examples in the metropolitan area where McDonald's particularly, or other fast food outlets, exist next to residential neighbours. It's not ideal, and I will give you that. And I do understand your concerns raised about potential impact. But I'm satisfied that the updated technical information, the works proposed to the intersection will address the congestion that could be caused by the land uses that are allowed under your strategic planning documents. And if the development is built in accordance with the plans, it should meet the noise thresholds in the noise regulations. And the restricted hours of operations will assist with that. If those thresholds are exceeded, the city can take action to enforce compliance. And because they are backed by noise regulations, it's actually one of the easier things to take compliance action on other than planning issues. And this might require the employment of additional mitigation strategies. Pause.
They've just turned their camera off. They're still there.
So in closing, because of those reasons, I feel there is no defensible reason to refuse this application. Before I finish, I would also like to move a further amendment, presiding member, to delete condition 1, which relates to a dual approval under the Metropolitan Region Scheme.
Thank you. Moved by member Page, seconded by member Coltas.
And the reason is simply that that condition is no longer relevant given the Metropolitan Region Scheme has been changed and the new one came into operation in March 25. So that condition is no longer relevant.
Thank you. Member Coltas, did you wish to speak to amendment 2?
No, just.
Okay. Other speakers on amendment 2 to delete condition 1? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour of amendment 2? That's unanimous. Thank you. And member Page, you've concluded your opening remarks. Member Coltas as seconder, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I firstly concur with the comments made by member Page. Initially, when we assessed this application, there were concerns, and I acknowledge the community concerns that were raised. And as a result of that, a number of reasons for deferral were given. I'll go through them one by one. In terms of traffic, the deferral reasons 1, 2, and 3, I'm satisfied that the proponents have undertaken the necessary review of the transport impact assessment that we originally looked at, and that their traffic modelling has supported the proposal. We've heard varying comments on the traffic impact assessment, and submitters have given their views on it. It's not unusual to be in this situation as decision makers where proponents and objectors give differing views. We're guided firstly by the planning framework, and that's what we have to look at, and we're given advice through various experts in the field of traffic and other issues. In this case, the council reviews the information before us, and we have to make a decision based on the information that's given to us, the recommendation of the council, and also submissions that are made. And I'm satisfied that the proponents have reviewed their traffic impact assessment on traffic issues, specifically for generation rates and parking. And I'll get onto parking. I'm satisfied also that given the context of this site within a town centre, the parking provisions can be relaxed for individual uses, given that in the context of a town centre, there's a lot of parking provided, and in a lot of instances over provided, and public parking provided both in council car parks and in the streets. A lot of comment was made about the inappropriateness of taking into account public transport trips, in walking, cycling. I think we all recognise that a lot of the custom to these to the fast food outlets is generated by younger people. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I'm not going to be a social engineer. Neither am I going to comment on the health benefits of fast foods or the disbenefits of fast foods. That's a thing for society to make a decision, and we're not here to determine that. We're here to determine on a planning framework the use that's proposed. And in the context of shared trips to the facility, I'm confident that the traffic engineers have provided and the council has assessed appropriate levels of upgrades to the road that's proposed. And in terms of the parking, I'm satisfied that the proposal generates and provides for an appropriate amount of parking on site. The works at the Heath Road and Canning Road intersection, that's still to be determined, the exact nature of that, but I think that it's initially proposed the removal of a few bays and the works associated with that to have a left and right turn from Heath Road is an appropriate ameliorating factor that supports this development. Trading hours, I agree with those that have been determined. And once again, getting back to decision number 6, the design review panel feedback, as Member Page has mentioned, these are guidance. One of the issues that we need to take into account in determining these applications. I'm satisfied from the renders proposed and the plans submitted that it will not be an unattractive facade to Canning Road, which I think is the main issue, and I think that it will provide an appropriate level of screening of the car parking, the queuing vehicles, and also provide an entry statement to the development and protection for pedestrians that cross the road and go into the development itself. So in closing, I'm supportive of the development. However, I acknowledge the strength of community opposition or concern. Some of it, I think, has been answered effectively through the submissions and the responsible authority report. Some I don't think the proponents or council would be able to satisfy, but all in all, I think the development is appropriate for the site and I'll be supporting it.
Thank you. Did you wish to amend anything, reciprocal access or anything?
Yes, sorry, you reminded me. I'm proposing an amendment to include a condition.
So amendment 3.
The condition being that
condition.
Yep. That a reciprocal access and parking arrangement be submitted to and approved to the satisfaction of the city relating to shared access through and within the site and car parking arrangements.
Okay, is there, as that's moved by Member Coltas, is there a seconder, please, for that? Member Page seconds. Did you wish to speak to it, Member Coltas?
Yes, the proponents mentioned that there is already a subdivision application in place. I can't recall having seen the detail of that in the previous documentation, but I think it warrants a specific condition for this development in the event that one of the sites is sold off to another owner.
Thank you. Member Page is seconded. Did you wish to speak to Amendment 3?
Just to say I support that amendment because it just makes it clear, perhaps not essential in the long run, but I do think it's a safeguard. I would just query, when would we like that to be submitted?
Prior to occupancy.
Happy with that.
Okay, the mover and the second have added the words prior to occupation before the words a reciprocal access and parking plan, etc. Are there other speakers for or against this amending motion? No, if there are no other speakers, I'll put this to the vote. Those in favour of amending motion 3? That's unanimous. Thank you, panel.
Can I also add just an additional condition?
Yes.
That the proponents submit a site operation management plan. I think there's standard wording that the city may have in regard to that.
Might I suggest something along the lines of prior to occupation and operational management plan to be prepared to the satisfaction of the City of Kalamunda, the approved operational management plan to operate these land uses for the duration unless otherwise approved by the City of Kalamunda.
Exact words I was going to use.
That Member Coltaz, and I'm happy to second that. Did you wish to speak to that amendment?
Yes, I think that it's a fairly standard condition on a lot of land uses these days where there are issues of, not that they haven't been covered in things like signage and waste management, etc., but it kind of encapsulates all of those into one transparent document that the community and compliance authorities can go to.
Thank you. I don't have anything further to add as seconder, but would any other panel members like to speak to Amendment 4? If not, I shall put that to the vote. Those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Member Coltaz, you?
No, I've finished. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other speakers for or against the motion? I might check with members online. Member Mayor Thomas, did you wish to speak to the primary motion?
Yes, thank you. We've heard a lot of things this morning, and I'm not going to waste your time, presiding member and panel members, by revisiting those. It is such a shame that this project is in the middle of the highest density residential area in the suburb of Kalamunda, mainly due to our sewerage constraints. And it's also next to the two most used intersections, being Canning Road, Heath Road, and Haynes Street, Heath Road, because it's right in the middle of our town centre. So that is a shame, but that's what we've got. And I do acknowledge the proponent has reviewed and made an upgrade in relation to deferral reason 1, but this upgrade is just buying time. It's not a long-term solution. And I just can't support this because we are going to be left with that. I note that I've been to a lot of McDonald's since this started, like really looking at them. And the thing that makes this one different to a lot of others is they are on a busy road where the traffic can dissipate quickly. It gets rid of it. But that is not the case here. Canning Road is such a busy road. And because this, I've mentioned this before, the town or the suburb of Kalamunda is old and the streets don't align. So you've got Haynes Street going to nowhere, you've got Heath Road both going to Canning Road, but not aligning. So I just don't think that deferral reason 1 has been met. And for that reason and others that I won't go into to save time, I just cannot support this application.
Thank you, Mayor Thomas. Deputy Mayor Ritchie, would you like to speak to the primary motion?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Madam Chair. In speaking against the motion, I'm cognizant of the additional work undertaken by the city's officers since our first meeting. Before outlining my reasons for objections to the recommendations, I'd like to acknowledge the community opposition to the application. I understand that community opposition is not in itself a reason to approve or reject a development application. However, in this instance, it's worthy of note and consideration. In my time as a councillor, I have never seen such a groundswell of opposition to any development. Community meetings, public forums, both online and written petitions, pay testament to this depth of feeling. In addition, phone calls from elderly residents immediately to the south of the development and in surrounding streets have been characterised by genuine distress and a sense of powerlessness as they enter the last decades of their life. But my objections to development are as follows. As recognised by the city officers, the proposal has a demonstrative level of non-compliance with State Planning Policy 4.2, Local Planning Schemes 2 and 3, and Local Planning Policy 30, Kalamunda Activity Centre Built Form Guidelines. Firstly, State Planning Policy 4.2 states that activity centres have a compact urban form with pedestrian dominant streetscapes. Further, street design and the urban structure is conducive to and prioritises access to and within activity centres by walking, cycling and public transport. Private vehicle trips to and within the activity centres are minimised, reducing the demand for parking. This has particular resonance with the application as both proposed developments are car-centric and will significantly increase traffic to the extent that it requires a new road configuration. Rather than minimising or reducing the need for parking in the area, the development increases the need for parking as it is adjacent to two other high-use retail outlets, one current, the supermarket, and one under review. And there is very limited parking. There is no public parking within 400 metres, close enough to 500 metres within this development. There is street parking, but the closest public parking in a public area is the library, which is at the top of Haynes Street. The city's design review panel recognises the disconnect with the policy by considering removal and for the drive-through to create more of a pedestrian scale, an active frontage and a better consideration of the town centre. Secondly, Local Planning Policy 2 provides requirements for signage, and as noted by the officer's report, this development does not comply with three of these provisions, namely the height, width and separation. Thirdly, Planning Policy 30, Kalamunda Activity Centre Guidelines, complement the planning requirements of State Policy 4.2 in setting a set of development standards that allow the town to evolve and grow in a cohesive structure focused on a pedestrian-oriented environment. It specifically states these guidelines are applicable to all developments within the activity centre. As acknowledged by the officers, the McDonald development does not meet 7 of the required provisions, including street setbacks, awnings, glazing, on-site parking and floor levels. Further, the car dog wash does not meet 9 of the 11 required provisions. It is to be noted that Planning Policy 30 concludes where there is a conflict between the proposed development and the design guidelines. The design guidelines prevail. Clearly, this is not the case. The proposal fails to meet the car parking requirements for fast food outlets as stated in Local Planning Policy 3, while acknowledging the officer suggests that there is sufficient other local parking. It is unlikely that families with small children looking to use the restaurant and play area will cross a busy road to do so. More likely is the use of the limited parking on the adjacent supermarket site, and conversely those who currently use the proposed development site for parking will now use the supermarket site. With removal of the development site, which is currently used for parking by the supermarket customers, competition for limited street parking will increase, resulting in increased congestion. Another likely outcome is that the church adjacent to the development site will become a parking site for customers to the restaurant and supermarket. As mentioned earlier, they're unlikely to cross Canning Road. It's also to be noted that 6 designated street parking bays are to be removed to facilitate the development. With regards to amenity and environment, there are a number of considerations that can be considered to reflect the amenity of the development. Firstly, the amenity of neighbouring residents. There are 80 units for elderly residents within a 250-metre radius of the development. It is to be observed on any day that the majority walk or use mobility scooters to the town centre using Heath Road several times per week. The increased traffic on Heath and Canning Roads will be of concern for their safety. There's already been one fatality of an elderly restaurant when crossing Heath Road. The elderly residents admitted to the south of the development have particular concerns. Their homes were in place before the introduction of the activity centre and the change of permissible land use on the development site. While the setback from the boundary is compliant, the drive-through is at the rear of the building adjacent to these neighbours. Idling cars and loudspeakers taking orders are unlikely to be completely mitigated by the sound treatments. Further, no mention has been made of the dog wash and the likely barking of dogs across these hours of operations. And is also concerned for the 24-hour 300 candle illumination of the McDonald's sign spilling onto these properties. Secondly, both the built form policies and guidelines and the design review panel recognise the context of Kalamunda as an historic, semi-rural town with a village atmosphere in a peri-urban setting, not a densely developed urban area. The proposed development is not located on a major transport route, rather a Category 2 regional road. Buildings in the town centre date from the 1800s, and the proposed built forms do not complement these buildings or the pedestrian-oriented nature of the town. The building to the north of the proposal is 100 years old, and its awnings, glazing and minimal setbacks demonstrate what is intended in the built form and the activity centre policies and guidelines. As noted earlier, the design review panel suggests consideration be given to the removal or amendment to the drive-through component to create a more pedestrian scale, an active frontage and better consideration of the town. It is to be noted that the other 3 fast food outlets in the town centre do not have drive-through components, even though those businesses do so in other locations. They have located their businesses so they are compliant with the built form guidelines. Officers note there is an existing fast food outlet on the opposite side of Canning Road, which is set back from the street and has vehicle access surrounding it. This business was built prior to the activity centre and built form policies. However, it is not close to other high-use businesses or residential units and has no direct access to Canning Road, which has, unlike this development, no impact on traffic flows, congestion or volume. Further environmental considerations. In the original Arborist report, 4 significant trees were identified. Only 2 of these are to be retained, despite the design panel suggesting at least 1 more could be retained with modified design. The revised plan also fails to deal with the traffic congestion in the area, specifically on the corner of Heath and Canning Road. The proposed left turn lane outside AG for me is of concern. Firstly, it narrows the footpath considerably and places vehicles closer to the entrance of IGA. Secondly, a sharp left turn positions the vehicle closest to the crosswork. I've found that when vehicles are turning left, drivers are more focused on what is on their right, and seeing a gap in the traffic, accelerate quickly. This will place in danger anyone on the crosswalk. Thirdly, the proposed left turn lane will require the removal of more on-street parking. In summary, I acknowledge that the McDonald's development is a permitted land use and the proposed dog car wash is a discretionary land use which is open for the panel to approve. However, the number and extent of the modifications or exemptions proposed to the State and City of Kalamunda planning policies, totalling 10, the car-centric nature of the businesses resulted in a significant increase in traffic numbers and congestion, which necessitates a change to road configurations with a resulting loss of convenience to residents, the effect on adjoining businesses from decreased parking and increased congestion, the complete lack of endorsement by the city's planning review panel, the lack of planning spaces for a 60-seat restaurant, the loss of amenity and safety for the neighbouring elderly residents, and the failure to recognise the semi-rural and historic nature of Kalamunda are collectively found factors to be considered by the panel in its deliberation. The applicant's response to the 6 reasons for deferral has been limited. I believe the only significant change has been the inclusion of a left turning lane from Heath Road. As outlined, this may well create safety considerations as further reducing street parking. It is the sum and extent of these considerations and the lack of a real attempt to adequately address the 6 reasons for deferral as set by the panel does not allow me to support the proposal. Finally, every application before a panel and its determination is unique to site-specific circumstances. Of note is the rejection of the development application in a neighbouring semi-rural and historic setting where the panel considered a proposal for the McDonald's in Guildford. The panel concluded that the heritage integrity and the adverse impact on local businesses through traffic and parking were major contributing factors to their rejection. This ruling was upheld on appeal to the State Administrative Tribunal. I believe the circumstances of this development reflect the same adverse considerations and allow for a similar rejection of this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Ritchie. I'm the last person to speak apart from the mover. I've been through a similar process to other speakers, looking at the reasons for deferral as a first point, and finding whether adequate movement has been made against each of those in order for us to have sufficient information to reconsider. I'll be very brief. I have looked at each of them and I consider that, yes, there is sufficient movement and sufficient technical information brought back to us in order for us to make an informed decision. I also thank the city planning officers for the RAR, which I found a very sound means of stepping us through each of those deferral reasons and the responses and the conversations that they have had between their own technical expertise officers and the technical expertise of the applicant's consultant team. So I appreciate that, and I found that it did give me sufficient information to have comfort that a decision could be made today. It is fair to say that this is a stepped process in terms of the need to improve the traffic movement and the road network in that area. And as planners, we have to be conscious that we can't load all of the issues and failures of a traffic network onto one particular development application or the first development application that happens to come through once a structure plan or studies have been endorsed. And I think, again, the RAR summed this up. This isn't a case of doing nothing. This is a case of doing sufficient where we find that there is adequate need and nexus between the volumes that are created by this development, any improvements that can be done that can be rightly associated with this use. And the RAR is quite clear that the city requires this work to be done in order to give them a benchmark from which they can continue to do further studies, analysis, traffic surveys, up-to-date work, in order for the city to take responsibility for the final upgrade post 2030. And so I think we need to be clear about those roles and responsibilities, and I think that we have asked of the applicant and the city have worked together to come to a solution which their joint technical consultants have agreed will be adequate. And I think, as the applicant said, the conditions of approval still require further finite detail to be done, and they have listened to you today and they have received your submissions. And so matters of pram ramp safety, matters of pedestrian safety continue to be taken on board as this design develops prior to construction. Furthermore, the panel has been very conscious of requiring more reasonable operating hours, and the applicant has volunteered reduced hours. We have in turn embedded those operational hours into the condition of approval, despite thoughts that perhaps it wasn't necessary. We have taken it upon ourselves to say, no, we wish to tie this down to certain operational hours, inclusive of servicing, in order to make sure that there is very limited, if any, no nighttime activity. We have also required an operational management plan. Wasn't originally included, but we've taken seriously those matters that you've raised about behaviour, complaints, litter, etc. So that again reinforces that we've listened and that there is to be operational management of that. There are matters such as noise and lighting and odour, which, if you like, we are cognizant of, but there are other regulations outside of the planning framework which take account of those matters. And there is a due process through the city for those complaints to be made on those things, should those issues occur at the point of operation. And of course, there are other matters, as you would all be fully aware, and I respect that you have raised them around property values and commercial competition and those sorts of things, but they do not fall to us to determine those matters. And as Member Coulter says, matters of dietary consideration, again, fall outside strictly of our planning framework as we have it. And considering the planning framework as a whole, including, I guess, as Deputy Mayor Ritchie says, the state planning framework, which actually talks to activity centres and what would be a preferred use, which includes these uses, the fact that this is a district centre, the fact that the activity centre precinct plan has recently been endorsed and supports this, these types of uses. Taken that all together on balance, very, very difficult to find sound reasons for any refusal, pardon me. The matters that we have looked at today are capable of being conditioned and capable of further work between applicant and to the satisfaction of the city. And I'm afraid I don't find any further reasons to defer it again, or any reasons in order to refuse it. So I am supportive of the motion before us as we have amended. With that said, I refer back to the mover for the right of reply, Member Page. Thank you. In that case, I will put the primary motion as amended to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried 3-2 with Members Ritchie and Thomas against. I will just very briefly, if I could beg your indulgence, just to run through the last little bits of the agenda. We have no Form 2 for item 5, no SAT reconsiderations at item 5, 4 and 5. Other business, there are no further SAT applications within the city, although this DAP is dealing with one in the city of Kwinana. And at that point, I would just like to thank everybody in the room and online for their respect and participation today. And thank Mayor Thomas and Deputy Mayor Ritchie, the other panel members in the room, the officers and the presenters, and draw the meeting to a close at 8 minutes past 12 midday.
Thank you.